All right, we're here. Hello, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving to all of those who celebrate, and once again to all of those who don't, but have to go to the family functions in order to keep up appearances. Come in close and spend a good little 10 minutes with Film Tape while we talk about a film that was released this week, at least nationally, that is, Bones and All, the new Luca Guadagnino romantic horror film starring Taylor Russell and Timothée Chalamet, which is a film that I have been incredibly invested in for, I would say, a year now, ever since it got announced, basically, as I am very weird in the way that I just go through catalogs constantly on Letterboxd or Wikipedia checking for new films that'll be announced. I don't really get my news from Twitter or social media or anything like that. I just scour the internet to find it in random places. But I was excited. This had everything that I was interested in. Timothée Chalamet, Luca Guadagnino, Taylor Russell, and an intertwining love and horror story about cannibalism. That is absolutely all of that is in my wheelhouse, and I was super excited for it, looking forward to this week. And I was very disappointed when I looked around and saw that, hey, there is not a theater where I am that is playing Bones and All. And I was like, man, I can't get the Fablemans, can't get Glass Onion, and now I can't get Bones and All. Oh, brother. But lucky for me, it was just postponing it, apparently, as the Regal near me announced it a couple of days ago that they were going to be getting Bones and All. So I saw it today. Well, it's yesterday because I'm recording this. You get the gist. And I have thoughts about it. Let's talk about those thoughts. The most obvious thing to talk about here that's just blatantly at the forefront are their performances by this ensemble cast led by, of course, Taylor Russell and Timothée Chalamet, who are, as you would expect, wonderful. And even though I was expecting Taylor Russell to be the one to draw my attention the most because she's just so good in everything she does, her performance in Waves is one of my favorites of the 2010s, I'd say. But here in this one, as much as I love him, I did not expect Timothée Chalamet to be as good as he is in this. Tackling this more horror-esque role is something that we haven't seen him do before, yet he nails it perfectly. And I think with this film, he truly does show people, hey, I'm not just a pretty face that everyone thirsts after. My range is impeccable. To me, he's already shown that in all of the films that he's done, but I think this to the mainstream should yell, hey, I've been nominated for Oscars, guys. I am really great. And then also, of course, you have Mark Rylance, who steals the show, steals the scene every single moment that he is on screen. Probably my second favorite performance in the film. He is just so grimy and dirty and horrifying, but there's a magnetism about him that you just can't take your eyes off of the screen. Chloe Sevigny, who is also in this, is good in the limited time she's given. So is Michael Stuhlbarg. Great performance. But the one that really gets me is Andre Holland. Andre Holland has about maybe 10 to 15 minutes of screen time, and in those 10 to 15 minutes of screen time, he really is only on screen for about maybe 7 of them, but he is magnificent. His emoting in his voice is not of this world. Incredible. He manages to portray this atmosphere, really this palpable tension of trying to go back and forth between this conflict of have I raised a monster, will she get over it? And he's trying to deliver this story to his daughter herself, and it's so beautiful in every sense of the word. So I absolutely loved Andre Holland's performance, and I think he should be really commended But overall, everyone is super great, specifically Chalamet, Rylance, and Russell. All do so well. It's also worth noting, again, in romances between 20-somethings in film, it's very, very hard to find couples that have chemistry, and Timothée Chalamet and Taylor Russell sold me the fact that they are in love by their body language, by their eyes gazing at each other. It is something else, man. I was really, really impressed by the chemistry they were able to cultivate on screen. More of not just this base level, oh, we're in love chemistry, but this more elevated chemistry on the level of we are connected through the things that we have gone through and the experiences we have shared but not actively shared together is just great. Just great. Now, the other very prominent thing that I would like to mention on the technical side of things is the score, which is made by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And of course, if you know anything, you'll know that you are basically guaranteed a banger of a score when you get Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor to do it. But out of all of their scores that I've heard, this one really surprised me by how subdued it is and how gorgeous it is. I usually don't use those types of words to describe Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross scores. They're generally intense and building and climactic and terrifying almost. And there is some level of that here in some of the songs, but most of them are very just gorgeous guitar ballads, almost very soulful, very heartfelt. And seeing that out of them was really, or hearing, I guess, that out of them was very impressive to me, and I enjoyed it a whole lot. I'd also like to give a shout out to Arseni Khachaturian, who is the cinematographer of the film. And the reason I'd like to give a shout out to him is this is a film that does not look like other films of its ilk. The style of cinematography is constantly being shifted. There's some handicap cam-esque shots. There's some sprawling, just wide, normal shots. And then there are some very, very lucid. That's not the word I'm looking for. There's a lot of movement in the shots. Very active shots that I enjoyed. And sometimes when a cinematographer attempts to take all those styles and put them together, it comes off as very disjointed and very cut off, and transitioning from one of those styles of shots to another one can kind of take you out of the moment. Does not happen here. Very seamlessly woven through. And again, another thing to recognize, he's only 29 years old, which I find to be very impressive. So really, really, really solid stuff on the visual side of this. And also, of course, clearly shout out to Luca Guadagnino, the man who always has a vision whenever he tackles a project. And that is no different here. He had a vision, he accomplished it, and I have to just give him big praise for that. And also not just for that, but for consistently doing that throughout the past decade on numerous different films. But he also just does it here, weaving in horror and romance in a way that we don't often see on screen, nay, maybe have not really, rarely seen on screen, maybe ever, who knows. I can't think of an example that does it this well, but God, it does it fantastically, and that would not have been that way if not for Luca Guadagnino. So shout out to him, obviously. So the question we now have to ask, or I have to ask myself, is what about this film holds it back for me, as we always do at this point in the review? And that would be very simply, actually, something I was not expecting from a Luca Guadagnino product. It is a little bit cheesy, kind of melodramatic in a certain way. There are certain things that happen in this film that I imagine are pulled directly from the source material that just come off as super out of tone with the actual rest of the film, and they come off as just very over the top. in a way that maybe like an Argento film, and that just didn't vibe with me because it seemed like the rest of this film was trying to be super duper serious, and taking a very careful tact in handling the subject matter, because obviously cannibalism isn't something that you can just throw around willy-nilly. You have to, especially in the landscape of this film, you have to handle it with care, but some of the moments didn't feel like they matched up with that level of care necessarily, and it did take me out of the film whenever those moments happened, and I had to re-immerse myself in it. Some of it was through the dialogue, some of it was through the actions the characters took, but overall it did detract from my overall experience of the film a little bit. But that it didn't detract it enough for me to say that it is a bad film or a mediocre film. Obviously, Bones and All is a very good film that is also very enjoyable, but also I will say much harder to stomach than I would have imagined. It wasn't hard for me to stomach, but I was considering bringing someone along who is generally into these types of movies, but this did cross a boundary that I would have said, I don't think you would want to be here for this one. But yeah, Bones and All does not pull back at all in any capacity, and I guess I have to thank it for that, because although that lack of pulling back does lead to some kind of over-the-top moments, it also leads to some of the most wonderful and heartbreaking moments of the film, as well as just completely full-on banger performances from everybody on the cast. So overall, at the end of the day, I am going to give Bones and All an 8 out of 10. Barely squeaks in there to an 8, but it is an 8 out of 10. Had a really good time with it. I haven't seen Devotion yet, but I have to imagine that this will be the best film option to go see this week/weekend. So yeah, go see it. Definitely recommend going to see this, especially considering the fact that you will probably get a relatively empty theater. Mine was one other person and myself, and that added to the experience of this one truly kind of emanating that level of loneliness that is portrayed in Taylor Russell's performance. Definitely helps to have that abandoned theater type vibe going on. But yeah, great, go see it. Had a good time with it. Solid film overall. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm currently contemplating whether I will do Devotion for the Black Friday video or a video on a film that I am considering watching tomorrow, so maybe I don't have to go out on Thanksgiving and I can just watch this film instead and do a review on it. But yeah, that is it for this. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a good rest of your holiday, and I will talk to you in the next one. Goodbye.